today's presentation. I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Dr. Rakowski and all his wonderful knowledge, his guidance, and everything that he's done, not only for me, but for the world. We are in the room with a legend. He is one of the top doctors and experts in the world when it comes to natural medicine. He is definitely the doctor to the elites and practices all over the world. But not only that, he leads other practitioners who are learning and expanding their practices as well. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce you, Dr. Bob Rakowski. Welcome to the call. Thank you for spending this time with us. I know your time is super valuable, but we're honored and it's a huge pleasure to have you here tonight.
Diane, it's always a pleasure. You know, my absolute favorite topic is health. And I like to tell people, you know, I read a book years ago entitled Everyone's an Athlete. And to some degree, we all absolutely are. And how wonderful. And so if we treat our bodies like athletes, nourish our bodies like athletes, train them, rest them, recover them, then we can absolutely get the best out of our entire life. And I tell people I've been in clinical practice now. It's my 31st year, and I've seen all ends of the spectrum. I've seen world champions from every major professional sport, 50 different Olympians. I've also seen people that were sent home to die. And the reason I show that foot on the bottom is that foot was given a death sentence. It was literally scheduled to be amputated 2 days from the time that picture was taken. But yet look at it 2 weeks and ultimately 17 months later, never had a surgery. And I tell people, if you've got a pulse, you've got a prayer. And we haven't just done that with feet. We've done it with hearts that were on heart transplant lists that, guess what, in a matter of weeks, the heart function improved so much they didn't need a transplant. Similar with kidneys and liver. So, you know, we can turn things around, and bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli. I have also taught over 10,000 hours of continuing education seminars, literally on 6 different continents. And so I have an absolute passion for cutting edge information. But when we look at the title of this, it's Performance Nutrition Made Easy and Delicious. Well, why would that be? Well, if you ask someone, do you prefer easy or challenging? Generally easy. How about delicious or not so delicious? Well, delicious is going to win hands down. And I might just share a quick video from Ulysses, who I had a fantastic opportunity to work with, and one of the greatest natural bodybuilders of all time. But here's Ulysses giving an interesting little testimonial, and we'll expand on this and more on sports nutrition.
This is how I start my day, guys. I get in early in the morning, get my cup of coffee, in this case, healthy coffee, all right? It's Organo Gold with Ganoderma in it. It's good stuff right here. Keeps me focused, alert for the day. I work a lot, sometimes 60, 65 hours a week, you know, and I train. I got a family, so it's a bit crazy. But this stuff keeps me focused, and it's great for you too. You know, it's great for your immune system. It boosts your immune system up. So it's very good stuff to have in the morning. Make sure you check it out. Ganoderma. Peace. What do we need to train? We need oxygen, and the herb in this coffee called Ganoderma. Ganoderma is an incredible nitrate donor. Nitric oxide is one of the most important molecules in the human body because it's what signals the wall of blood vessels to relax. Normal coffee is acidic and has a pH of about 5, and when we exercise, we create even more acid. This coffee has a pH of around 7, which means it promotes alkalinity within the body, all right? It's an anti-inflammatory, and it also has some antioxidant properties that are great for you. It helps build your immune system, and it's a win-win situation, guys. I like to get Ganoderma in my system when I'm training because it actually supercharges my brain function, and it helps me concentrate more while I'm training. This all amounts to a quicker recovery and a healthier body. I believe these products has helped me with my workouts, my recovery, and my health. And I personally believe these products would help you too. For more details on these great products.
So pretty fascinating. Ulysses dotted the I's, crossed the T's on most of what we talk about. And in the years that I've treated athletes and taught sports nutrition, these are the top 5 things that athletes need to focus on. First, we're going to look at focus, literally play on words there. But if the brain's not in the game, you're going to have challenges. And you know, I've talked to my elites and I'll ask them this question: how much of high performance is dependent on having the right mindset? And I've gotten answers from the elites ranging anywhere from 90%, I think is the lowest from the elites, to 100% of the game being mental. So we've got focus, we've got fuel, we've got acid buffers, we've got inflammatory control and recovery. And I'm going to share some of these things. So Ulysses was having a cup of coffee. Coffee in and of itself can be really, really good, but ours is infused with Ganoderma, which is phenomenal for the brain. So you look at serotonin, happiness, GABA, calmness, acetylcholine, memory, and dopamine is where that focus comes in. And there's a lot more other benefits than just that. But imagine having a calmed, focused, happy brain that remembers things better. And that's something that we can achieve. And interestingly enough, while we're talking about the brain, Organo, the same company that has the great coffee, has something called Cognition, which is a brain training device. Been around for over 20 years, over 50 published medical studies. And here's what we know. It works in every demographic, whether you're 6 or 106. And it's even been studied with attention deficit in kids that had a really hard time focusing. Interestingly enough, when you add Ganoderma to the mix, the neurotracker benefits are magnified and accelerated. And if you're not a big fan of coffee and tea, this brain energy drink not only has Ganoderma, but a bunch of other superfoods that make it profoundly good for the brain and body. When we move into fuel, one thing that I'll tell you is different athletes are going to require different energy systems in different proportions. And if we were to have an extended presentation and even talk about training, I would tell you that the athletes need to train their muscle fibers and energy systems, all of them, but in proportion to the demands of their sport. So you look at a power lifter, and I've taken power conferences and also treated world-class power lifters, and they're going to tell you if you don't get a lift in 6 seconds, you're not going to get that lift. And so the first 6 seconds of energy, first 3 is stored ATP. The second is creatine phosphate. That's the next 3 seconds. After that, you shift to anaerobic glycolysis. And you've got a minute, maybe 2 minutes of anaerobic. And then ultimately we go to aerobic metabolism. And depending upon the athlete, this guy needs to focus on basically ATP, creatine phosphate, acid alkaline buffering. This person needs to work on mitochondrial energy efficiency, what's known as fatty acid oxidation. And then this is a hybrid athlete that needs both, power and endurance. And so when we start looking at these things, all of the energy systems come into play, but definitely in different proportions depending upon the athlete. So while we're talking about fuel, we not only use fuel for energy, we use it for structure, we use it for acid alkaline buffering. And we know that malnutrition is now the top cause of death on the planet and really has been for decades. So I have a very comprehensive nutrition pyramid. I like to fill every rung of that with every patient I work on wherever possible. And interestingly enough, Ganoderma lucidum dots the I's and crosses the T's as the top superfood on the planet. It has all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water in doses that make a difference to human health, and literally thousands of medical studies. So when you start looking at it, more magnesium than broccoli, more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, more omega-3 than tuna, more protein than beans, more antioxidants than berries, more iron than spinach. And you keep going on and realize that this is a very, very, very nutrient dense food. And medicine's been studying it for over 60 years and with over 2,000 studies. And I might point out, the first one shows it's an anti-cancer agent. And by the way, there's over 100 studies on the anti-cancer benefits, over 15 cancers proven with efficacy against. So you start thinking about it. What if someone's pre-workout coffee actually prevented cancer and other serious challenges? And this is a documented fact with Ganoderma. Ganoderma also increases mitochondrial electron transport complexes. What does that mean? It makes your cells more efficient at overall energy production, and it even improves brain mitochondria. And the reason I showed this golfer on the green, it was a very fun study. They actually put EEGs, electrodes, on golfers' brains, and they put them on the green and they monitored them during their putts. And here's what we can tell you. When the brain was calmer, then the putting was better. So we want that calm focus that Ganoderma definitely provides. And when we start talking about mitochondria, Eliud Kipchoge ran the first, and as far as I know, the only sub 2-hour marathon in history. He was a regular consumer of Organo red tea, which by the way has Ganoderma and cordyceps. And preceding Eliud was Stevie McEwen. I actually did his nutrition consult, I think it was about 8 years ago, when he ran 100 marathons in 100 straight days and broke 5 world records. So pretty phenomenal there. When we start looking at acid alkaline buffers, this book here, Alkalize or Die, is a book that, it's been around for a while. I tend to look on the positive side rather than the negative. It's true, if you become too acid, you'll die, but why not alkalize and thrive? And there's plenty of benefits of the acid alkaline diet in terms of bone density, muscle, protection from chronic illness, cancer, et cetera. But it also improves the efficiency of every signaling molecule in the body, because every hormone in the body needs the right acid alkaline balance, as does every single enzyme in the body. So here's a graph of elite Olympic sprinters. And first 3 seconds, again, stored ATP, next 3 seconds, creatine phosphate. But then when they start kicking in anaerobic glycolysis, burning sugar without oxygen, they start producing lactic acid, and lactic acid slows them down. So kind of a fun story. When I first saw Tyson Gay, part of what I did was I gave him Ganoderma lucidum, but I did an assessment and found out that his body was too acid. I also figured out, by the way, that we could improve the responsiveness of the nervous system. And I said, Tyson, if we do the right protocol for just a few weeks, because bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli, we can get you faster off the line, and we can get you faster after 60. Would you like to do that? He says, absolutely, I'm all in. And so here is the result of that, which is so fun to show.
In the history of the planet here with me. Coach Eric Francis is the leader of the group. I have Jeremy Davis. I have Mr. Tyson.
Sound will get better in a moment.
Tyson last race beat Usain Bolt head to head in the 100 meters at the time of 9:83.
Start Tyson Gay out very quickly. Usain Bolt trailing by a meter. Tyson Gay, is he going to make history? He does. The only way to beat Bolt is by putting pressure on him from the front, and Tyson Gay stuck to the script today and did it. How many of you out there had this on your predictions? Because I didn't.
So how fun to be a part of that. And as I tell people, and it's not entirely accurate, but kind of close. I mean, I tell people Tyson signed a multi-million-dollar endorsement before his sweat even dried after that. So was it worth the effort? Yeah, it absolutely was. So still the American record holder there. So when we start looking at inflammatory control, this Time cover story calls it the secret killer. Inflammation below the threshold of pain can be a secret killer, top cause of literally all degenerative and chronic disease. It has a chronic inflammatory process associated with it. And then here's the benefit of Ganoderma lucidum, a very, very powerful anti-inflammatory by over a dozen proven mechanisms. And then a little tangent on that. When the body's inflamed, it actually upregulates by over 1000x something called inflammatory nitric oxide. Now, that's not a very healthy nitric oxide. It doesn't dilate the blood vessels. It's not good for brain signaling. And nitric oxide is life critical. So that chronic inflammatory circumstances devours nitric oxide. And since I'm a visual person, it's very much like a python swallowing a sheep. Nitric oxide Nobel Prize winning research and a number of studies, but besides its wonderful anti-inflammatory benefit, which preserves nitric oxide, Ganoderma is a nitrate donor and a very powerful regulator of nitric oxide. And in fact, Ulysses even called that out, because what did he notice? A better pump, better endurance during his sets, even sets that were creating lactic acid. Finally, when we start looking at recovery, I'm a huge fan of sleep for a lot of reasons. It's my number one self-care habit. Anders Ericsson, the book Peak, Secrets from New Science and Expertise. What they did is they looked at people in all fields. It could be music, it could be academics, it could be athletics, it could be business. And here's what he found. The best of the best slept 8.6 hours a night. And you look at these three phenomenal athletes and Google any one of their sleeping routines. They were profoundly rigorous about their sleep routines. And what do they have to show for it? Outstanding, long-term, unmatched performance. And so the best of the best realized that sleep needs to be a super high priority. And by the way, Ganoderma promotes sleep. People who consume Ganoderma fall asleep faster, sleep deeper, longer, wake up more refreshed. And I've even had people say, well, I'm going to put it to the test. I'm going to drink a coffee at bedtime and see what happens. And you know what? Nearly every one of them that's done that has been really good at it. But here's what I'll tell you. If you're caffeine sensitive, probably give yourself a buffer. And I still cut my coffee late afternoon because I go to bed early, but there's people that can drink it right up to bedtime when they couldn't previously drink other coffee and sleep like a baby. So Ganoderma, $2.5 billion a year industry, US alone. And so there's a lot of competition, which is pretty weak. You know, if you're buying Ganoderma in a capsule or maybe even infused in a beverage, how do you know what you're getting? And what I'll tell you is that most of the time you're getting something like this. And one of the differentiating factors, companies that have super high quality Ganoderma also have available something called Ganoderma spores. And spores are how the plant replicates. And what I tell people is that this plant is too sick to replicate. It doesn't produce any spores. So sick plants don't reproduce, sick animals don't reproduce, sick humans don't reproduce. This reproduces absolutely beautifully. And Organo has dotted the I's, crossed the T's in terms of quality control. But in addition to coffee and tea that have Ganoderma, they also have hot chocolate for kids. They have shakes that are profoundly delicious with a high quality organic grass-fed whey, another superfood. They've got their brain technology in terms of NeuroTracker, the brain energy drink in terms of the CXT. They've got an all organic skincare line, so clean you could eat it. And you know, here's what I'll tell you. You know, most people I know, if they realize the importance of skin, wouldn't put anything toxic on it, and they want to take better care of it. And we also own a travel company that has partnerships with over 100,000 resort locations around the world. And during the pandemic, when people weren't traveling, Organo had phenomenal cash flow and kept supporting our travel partners at the benefit of having 5-star resorts at basically 80% off for when travel opens up. So very powerful there. By the way, we also have 3 different Facebook groups for people that just want to browse around and see what type of information is available. The Miracle of Organo is a group that's interested in consuming it as a customer. Why Organo? There's a business tied to this as well. And then we have also what's known as OG Family Worldwide. And those are people that have joined our team. And what I think I'd like to do at this moment in time is just stop right then and there and see if anybody has any questions at all about Ganoderma, sports nutrition, anything I said or didn't say. Anything?
Hey, Dr. Bob.
Yes, sir. Happy
beautiful night. Yeah, it's funny. In my practice, the athletes are so obsessed with getting that little edge. And, you know, I don't know if you wear these sports mouth guards to relax the masseter muscles. That was a big few years ago. But just this little Ganoderma, from a personal experience, you know, gives me a little bit of edge at my age, you know, on the ice, and my athletes in my practice absolutely enjoy the benefits. So hats off. Thank you so much for introducing this to me.
Well, you know what, you are very welcome. And, you know, it's not even just the elites, but like you said, you know, you still enjoy hockey, you're still competitive, and you want that edge. And you know what, I don't know anybody that's consistently competitive that doesn't want an edge. Why not? Why not always take your game to the next level? And it doesn't matter the athlete, for that matter, or even the person. So if we go with Anders Ericsson's Peak, The best of the best sleep 8.6 hours a night. Now we can all track, if we choose, how good our sleep is. But a lot of people have come to realize you consume Ganoderma, the sleep quality improves, the sleep number improves, the deep sleep improves, the rest and recovery improves. The wake up is better when the inflammatory process is down, the stress hormones are less. We didn't talk about the fact that it detoxifies, but it does that pretty effectively as well. Alkalizes, does a brain and body good. And here's the simple fact. Every single athlete that I see, I put on it immediately. No downside, huge upside, no contraindication with any professional sports organization anywhere in the world, period, end of story. Absolutely phenomenal stuff.
And as you know, I love my numbers. So blood work is done on me because I'm my own laboratory. I get my patients to do blood work. Then they can also go on the product. And it's amazing how those normal lows or those normal highs, on the spectrum, they come more into the middle due to the performance of the assistance of the Ganoderma.
So Dr. Paul, I want to introduce you. I don't know if you're looking at what kind of view, but we've got aspiring boxer Rick, who's on here as well. He happens to be in Mississauga, and he and I had a conversation. So maybe the two of you can connect, get a little bit of that lab data. Here's a guy whose future is super, super bright. I'm excited to see what his numbers look like and how he can fine tune his game with some simple and subtle changes.
As Kairos, we can't do blood work in Ontario, but we can certainly get those from his MD if he's willing to participate. So anything I do, Rick, let me know. I'm in Don Mills.
There's also Dr. Jay Grossman, FYI. So
yes.
Dr. Jay would be our man. Just
yep.
little loopholes, guys.
Yeah, Dr. Paul, sorry about that. I actually thought you could order it. How interesting that the world can be so different.
Don't get me started there, Dr. Bob.
Okay.
You know what, Dr. Jay Grossman, fantastic practitioner, chiropractor, and naturopath. The fact is, with the network we have access to everything that we need. So Rick, if you get some questions, reach out. Let's help.
Rick, you are muted, bud. So however you hit that unmute button.
Yeah, that would be great. Like I would love that. I want to take my game to the next level, and I would love it.
It's fascinating. So some people know the more famous people, but do you know the name Termite Watkins? Anybody know the name Termite Watkins? They're making a movie on him. Sly Stallone bought the rights to make a movie of Termite's life, and he's got a nice autobiography. They Call Me Termite. Over 200 fights between amateur and professional. He lost a 15-round decision, co-main event with Muhammad Ali in Vegas years ago. But Termite, beyond phenomenal. And again, just another one of those people that we tuned up, even after his prime fighting years with good sports nutrition. And you know what, there's no limit as far as I'm concerned to how much we can accomplish and how good we can be for how long when we do the right things for our body, mind, and spirit. And this just happens to be good for all the above and the world. So wonderful there.
Yeah. So Rick, you're a boxer?
Yes, I am.
Okay. It's Dr. Bob is sorry to, I don't want to monopolize here, hijack this, but maybe the effects of brain concussions and the effects of Ganoderma would be worthwhile to explore.
You know what? And I could even pull up a video because it's so interesting that the day that I filmed Michael Morris, and maybe I'll pull that up and I'll share it, because a picture is not worth 1,000 words, but it's worth 2 million words. But Michael Morris, an elite banker who had a very severe traumatic brain injury, literally when they brought his kids to the ICU, they said, say goodbye to your dad. He's not going to make it. And then on the video that I have of Michael, in fact, I have it. So I'm gonna put this in the presentation and share it real quick, because he just happened to be in my office the same day that Evan Holyfield was there. And so let's go to there. Let's share the screen. There he is. And so the reason you see this scarring on both sides of Michael's head is his brain was swelling so rapidly that if the doctors did not dismantle his skull, the pressure created by the swelling within the brain would have crushed the brain. It would have actually forced it through the base of the skull, called the foramen magnum. And that herniation will kill you instantly because a lot of life critical functions happen there at the brainstem. So there's Michael and Evan, and kind of a fun testimonial. So I'll play it.
Hey, happy, beautiful, amazing day, an epic day here in Houston, Texas. So we got the whole gamut. We got future world champion Evan Holyfield. We also have Michael Morris, and Evan, first fight November 2. Yes, sir. And on a major card, we're predicting a beautiful victory, no doubt about that. But Michael, the gamut here is kind of interesting because if we get close on your head, you got an interesting scar. You got another interesting scar. We thank God for good medicine, but you suffered a head injury, and they actually removed pieces of your skull to keep your brain from crushing itself under swelling. Absolutely. But Michael, how are you today, and what do you attribute your recovery to besides the grace of God? We'll bring you in there tighter.
Besides the grace of my Maker and my Savior, as Dr. Bob just said, I give all the credit to God. I love that He puts people on this planet and around us to help us with His healing process. But what I really give credit to is my time with Dr. Bob and both of our commitment to having faith in God's perfect creation, which is our bodies, and learning. And I appreciate the time he spent appreciating and learning about how to keep people on track, to keep ourselves on a track of well-being. And I'll be honest, my accident was on May 21st. And 23 days later, I nearly could have jogged out of the hospital. And that was at 2 hospitals, one class 1 trauma facility, one of the best in the United States. They did their job. They did a craniotomy and craniectomy on this head. They took away, as best I can figure as a banker, about 25% of my skull tissue and replaced it. Part of it came back 25% during the first surgery, and I got the other pieces back a couple of months later. And I would say at this point, I feel like I'm about 85 to 90% of where I was before the accident. And that's more about me gaining back my physical strength. And Dr. Bob has coached me on ways I can do that properly without causing any damage.
So bottom line is, you know, they weren't really optimistic for a beautiful recovery for you.
Not at all.
Total opposite. The whole world is optimistic about what you can do because you got some gifts and you're going to use them very, very well. But I just love the idea here that we see someone who was at one point legitimately fighting for his life, and because he was proactive about nutrition and lifestyle before then, did it. And then we have someone else who's proactive about every aspect of his world with multiple championships to come. So
fun video there. And by the way, I'm going to then share something more specific about amyloid plaque. And so we'll show some very powerful before and afters, but when the brain is injured, then scar tissue is laid down, and that scar tissue can literally choke off the brain structures. And so let me pull up just some slides and I'll put that in the presentation and share again. So Dr. Paul, really good thought process there. It's kind of important that we have a full understanding or a better understanding of everything that can happen with this. If you suffer a concussion.
So amazing though, not only does it, you know, improve performance, but we have to have some sort of protection if we're exposing our brain to these traumas. You know, I look at all the boxers, and some of the boxers have not fared well over the time. So Rick, do you remember the Sullivan brothers?
Yes.
Yeah, I used to train with one of them, and you know, I didn't stay long in the boxing world because I didn't like getting my head smucked, but you know, but it takes a special person to do that. But you know, you got to think now. What's Dr. Bob? I steal his line every day in my practice. It's easier to stay out of trouble than get out of trouble. So sorry, interrupt. Yeah.
Oh no, well said there, Dr. Paul. So when we start looking at Mike Webster, the movie Concussion, that's the amyloid plaque, and this was a rat study. And maybe I should, if I can find a picture of the brain, this was a normal brain, and they created a new diagnosis, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So a lot of chronic trauma, the scar tissue that forms in the brain literally contracts and shrinks down and crushes and chokes off the brain structure. So another PubMed, Ganoderma decreases the inflammatory process, swelling, and even breakdown of the nervous tissue after a head or brain trauma. By the way, Michael Morris, never supposed to get, at best, they said 60% of his brain function back. By the end of that same year, he finished number 3 at a high level bank as a banker, a very cerebral type job. Ganoderma dissolves the amyloid plaque, improves the brain circulation, can prevent Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And this was a rat study. And they gave rats a controlled concussion. And I always, say, look, I don't want to hurt any animal for any reason, any time, but they literally put a rat and they drop a weight on its head in a controlled environment, the same weight from the same height in a controlled circumstance. Half the rats got treatment with Ganoderma lucidum and a few other nutrients. The others didn't. And at 21 days, they said, hey, what's the difference in scar tissue in the brain? And pretty profound, right? So that's the level of difference where we can see that. And again, the medical studies show that this stuff is beyond phenomenal. So brilliant addition to the conversation, Dr. Paul. Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments about?
Hey, Dr. Bob.
Yep, go for it.
How you doing? Happy beautiful evening. I just had a question about, let's say, for example, you have people who are like mind coaches or tutors or teachers. What kind of product approach do you think they could take to like probably enhance their business, their tutoring or their teaching or education wise?
Well, great question. And, the best product is the one that matches the individual that you're sharing it with. And so one of the statements that I really like is any program is only as good as its compliance. And when I tell the story of coffee and tea, I'll even talk about my elites. When my elites were in their career, when they were Hall of Fame and multiple world champions and multi-million-dollar contract earners and looking for another Super Bowl or title, these people were so diligent about every aspect of their life. I think that's the difference between an average competitor and the elite. The elite realize everything counts. And life is not when I'm fighting or getting ready to fight, it's 24/7. And the more I maximize my 24/7, the better. Well, all of these athletes, I don't care how diligent they were in their career, they all faded in their training, in their nutrition, in their recovery. You can even see pictures of like Michael Jordan with a significant belly, smoking a cigar, playing some golf. It's like, what the heck? Why wouldn't you keep at least some level of eliteness? But here's what I can tell you. When people switch to our coffee or tea, they never need to be reminded. They never plan to quit. And the vast majority of them, you couldn't pay them to drink anything else because they feel the difference. They feel the alkalinity. They feel the anti-inflammatory process. They feel the brain boost. They know that they're sleeping deeper, better. But I'll throw in a little comment on that. So one of my good friends who's a trainer, he was in Houston, now he moved to Los Angeles, and his name's Scott. I said, Scott, listen, you got to switch your coffee. This coffee's, going to change your game. Why don't you at least give it a shot? He says, you think it will? I said, yeah, in fact, I give a money back guarantee. So anyways, so he says, what's the guarantee? I said, if you don't, know that it's way better for you at the end of the box, I'll refund every penny. He says, all right, fair enough. So when he finished his box, he says, well, Bob, I don't want to burst your bubble. I don't want to be the first, but I don't feel any difference. And I said, fascinating. Okay, I guess it's not 100% for everybody, but thanks for telling me you want your money back. He says, no, I don't want my money back. It was good coffee, but yeah, it just didn't do anything for me. I said, okay, fair enough. Well, he called me back 2 days later. He says, you remember our conversation? I said, well, of course. He says, well, let me give you an update. He says, I didn't realize the differences, but here's what I know now. I don't have as much energy in the gym. I'm not sleeping as well. My focus isn't as good. I'm more sore. And quite frankly, that other coffee isn't sitting well with me. I get the jitters, and everything else. He says, so I want this coffee. I said, well, perfect. but then you get people like Manny Pacquiao. And I showed that picture first. Pacquiao was offered a cup of coffee by someone he knew well, someone who's a partner in Organo. I'm an investor in Organo, so full disclosure there. And why do I invest in it? Because it makes the world better. And how much better? Well, it depends on how many people we get involved with it. But for people like Diane, myself, absolutely life-changing. But at any rate, Pacquiao said, I don't drink coffee. It makes my heart race. And the person made a statement I'd never make to anybody having a cardiac problem, but he said, well, this one won't. Why don't you give it a try? I might qualify and say, look, this increases nitric oxide. It's anti-inflammatory. It's profound at stabilizing cell membranes. It's a GABA facilitator. I've had people on cardiac transplant lists get off of it, so it's probably not going to hurt your heart, but be gentle with it. But this person said, this one won't. So as I heard the story, Pacquiao took a sip, and he was just waiting for his heart to start beating out of his chest, but it didn't happen. So he took another sip, still felt good. Took another sip, felt good, finished the cup, had a second cup, had a third cup, had the workout of a lifetime. And then he went back, he says, how do I get more of this? Now picture the wisdom of the guy that introduced Pacquiao. He said, well, Manny, there's 3 options. You can be a retail customer. Hey, look, I'm more than happy to sell it to you. Or, you could be a wholesale buyer for a small fee. And if you're in North America right now, that small fee is $20.22. You can be a wholesale buyer for everything, including the CXT, the Neuro Tracker, everything else. You could be a wholesale buyer. I know even rich people want to save money. Or Manny, you're a senator, you're a humanitarian, you want to make the world better. With your influence, we could help thousands of families improve both their health and wealth. Join our team. Which would you like to do? And Manny said, I want to help thousands of families. And he's done that. He's been a brand ambassador, having huge impact, in a very short time, not just helping thousands, but tens of thousands. So how fun, and you never know where it goes. But so, I'm going to turn it back to Diane. So just for the fun of it, what was your life like before we had an Organo conversation, and how has it evolved since?
Good evening, Dr. Bob. I'm so grateful that you introduced me to this. For those of you that don't know me, my background's in nutrition. And I've spent 20 years in practice, loved every minute of it, became a single mom overnight. I wasn't expecting that. And that's when you realize, if you don't have a backup plan, you got to figure out something fast. And at that time, 7 years ago now, there wasn't any options. So Dr. Bob, that's when I came to you and I said, how do I stay in the field of health and wellness and actually make money? That's when you introduced me to Organo. And, I didn't really understand it because I was not a coffee drinker. I just tried getting people off of coffee and it wasn't very successful at all because I didn't realize how many people loved it so much. But I have to say, in the 20 years that I've practiced, it was the first time in my entire career path that I actually had to start carrying product in the trunk of my car. And I actually had to start carrying product at home because I would be stopped in my son's schoolyard after I had mom try the product. They felt the difference so immediately that they wanted more. No one wanted to wait to come to the office. No one wanted to wait for appointments. And that's when I realized, holy cow, this is huge. And then what I started to realize was that the reorders kept on happening. So it wasn't like the fish oils or the protein powders I recommend. People go on them, they stop, they disappear, whatever, life goes on. They wanted this so desperately. You can't find it at Costco. You can't find it at Timmy's. You can't find it at Starbucks. And then when I did the research and I realized it was more cost effective to drink this than it was to have a McCafe. Every sip, a person's increasing immunity. Every sip, they're increasing nitric oxide. Every sip, they're actually bettering their brain chemistry. Like the list goes on and on and on. For $1 a cup, are you kidding me? That's why I ran with this. And, I became the top income earner in Canada was because we have a wide open market. That's why no one knew about this product. They still don't, right? So we have more customers than we do brand partners. And Dr. Bob, we just opened up Australia and New Zealand. We're in 40 countries globally. And so when I realized 3 weeks after I shared it with a good friend of mine from the Philippines, she had a family in the Philippines who love the coffee because we're already in the Philippines. I went to bed at night and I woke up and there was money sitting in my back office. And I'm like, wait a minute, did I literally make money in my sleep with a family and people on the other side of the world I never met? That's when I realized coffee's recession proof, it's inflation proof, and it's depression proof. And when we go to bed at night, the other side of the world is waking up. What are they doing? Coffee or tea. And then they go to bed. And so this was like this pipeline that never stopped. And it fed my nutrition practice. And my nutrition practice fed the Organo model. Now I retired out of that because I can now. So thank you for that, Dr. Bob. Been the best decision ever. I have a whole life with my son now. We've been able to just get out of survival and totally go into the investor department now because of Organo. Organo was just the launch pad. So I'm grateful to you for that. Thank you for your mentorship.
Thank you for making our wonderful world better. And you know, I might just start out with this question. So Diane, how big was your network when you started with Organo?
I just started doing social media a year ago. I've never even stepped on Facebook or Instagram. I was belly to belly, so not very big at all.
Yeah, I mean, you knew a few close people, that was it. But now many, many, many thousands all over the world consistently consuming it. And you can retire, or you did retire, because you're set for life. Like you said, recession proof, depression proof, pandemic proof. You know, people consumed more. And so here's the issue. When the world economic circumstances shifted, I had plenty of people reach out to me and said, you know, Bob, you introduced me to this years ago. I should have listened then. And I usually tell them about Confucius. You know, he said, look, the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. Next best time is right now. So if you want to get going, let's get going. You know, and plenty of those people are now sharing and growing and building. And that part's awesome, but certainly wishing that they had done it before this, but the best time is now. So whatever you're thinking about, you might know somebody that wants to step up their health. Awesome. That's what we're all about. We always lead with health. We're always health first. But here's the deal. There's wealth right behind it for those that want it. And those that don't want wealth, well, cool. You know what? Just take care of your great self and make better choices and enjoy delicious products that improve the body, mind, and spirit. And I'm going to say the entire world as well. Better people make a better world.
Dr. Bob, I want to thank you with that client of mine, friend of mine, Bola. He was an expert boxer, and he, every 2 years, I think they have to go through some sort of brain testing or whatever. And once he got on there was an issue. I can't remember what it was. There was an issue that he was concerned about, and he got on the Ganoderma. And then 2 years later, when he went in to retest, they gave him a clearing. They're like, okay, we don't know what happened. It's just gone. Whatever was in his brain. I don't even remember what it was at the time, but those kinds of stories are the stories that win your heart. Because if you don't have health, you don't have anything. That's it. Like, take that to the bank. I did this for 20 years. But then when you have health and you're stressed about credit card debt, or you're stressed about retirement, or you're stressed about your job or your relationship, that deteriorates your health, right? So it's a feed forward cycle. They're interconnected. So I'm so grateful for this, Dr. Bob, and thank you again.
Well, while you mentioned that, how fascinating that with NeuroTracker, professional sports teams use it for performance baseline and also concussion recovery. So part of their protocol is they've got to get their NeuroTracker status back to be fully recovered from the concussion. So how powerful that, and by the way, if you go to YouTube, and it might be on YouTube, but it's certainly available through NeuroTracker, even the elite special forces in the military, they determine battle readiness with a simple NeuroTracker screen. And you know, they can figure out, hey, who's ready for this circumstance. And when every member of the team depends on everybody working at their highest level, you probably want everybody that's out there with you in that fight at their best. So pretty powerful there. So nice segue to future benefits. How many benefits are there? More than you could imagine. And Diane, I love to say that you're now part of, you know, the wonderful world of people that has plenty to invest and then literally can live off investment income, and how beautiful. And by the way, it starts with the Organo investment getting there. So how beautiful. So congratulations for that. Oh, you're muted.
I just said thank you so much. Honestly, this changed my life. I don't know where I'd be right now. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone at all? If not, I'm going to finish with 4. And so here are the 4 questions. These are from James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh. So first question is why? Why'd you take the time to be with us tonight? There's so many things you could do. Second question is the answer to the first. Why not? Why not learn rock solid sports nutrition principles that spill over to every aspect of life, and a simple strategy that dots the I's and crosses the T's on all of these principles? Third question is, why not you? Someone's going to say, this makes sense. I'm going to put this into my body consistently. I'm going to get the Neuro Tracker. I'm going to get the CXT. Maybe I want pretty skin. I want to do the BU line, or maybe I want 80% off of travel. I want to join Organo just for the Travala benefits. And then here's the final question. Why not now? The longer you wait to act on information, the least likely you are to act on it. So the simple call to action is, if someone referred you to this Zoom, this Facebook version of it, or even the replay, get back to them. You know, we are one team, one dream. Whoever referred you wants to make the world better. Go back to them and say, hey, listen, this makes a lot of sense. I want to start putting it in my body. Awesome. And some of you might say, this makes a lot of sense, and I know it can make a lot of dollars. I want a part of that too. But whatever you want to do with this, we're more than happy to support you. And I'll just say these words. Good night, all, and God bless. And Diane, were you planning on a training after this, or should I? I'm going to
You know
stop
what?
now.